Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Danger for Noah, Sharon and Nick. Disarray, Kane's good deed. Indicate that Noah Newman will be in some danger as Nick Newman and Sharon Newman are plunged into disarray. Let's discuss some important plot points since Kane Ashby will also be requesting Billy Abbott. Victor Newman will be performing a juggling act during the week of September 15th to 19th as he attempts to pursue several adversaries. Naturally, Victor wants to obtain Kane's AI program and use it against Billy at Abbott Communications initially. Victor then intends to target Jack Abbott and cause chaos at Jabbo. Victor is aware, though, that Kane appears to be pursuing his intentions now that he has employed Michael Baldwin as his fixer. Michael will be Victor's go-to source for updates and to keep him ahead of Kane's game, but Phyllis Summers and all of her suspicions might cause issues. Jack will alert Nicky Newman about the impending chaos in Genoa City because he sees the possibility of complete catastrophe there. Jack will also ask Victoria Newman for assistance, but given how Victor and Billy prefer to dig their heels in, she might not be able to do anything to stop them. Regarding the agreement they are likely going to make, Kane and Billy will lie to one another. Billy would rather terrify Victor into doing things his way than truly use the AI program to destroy Newman Enterprises. If the program is installed in Newman Enterprises' system, Kane will covertly maintain control over it and could use it to disrupt the company nonetheless. More personally, Kane will need to ask Billy for a favor. Kane will pressure Billy to mend their damaged relationship because he understands how devastated Jill Abbott is about her strained relationship with her son. When Kane puts on the charm in the upcoming episodes, he might also draw Lily a little closer. She will persuade Daniel Romalotti Jr. to chat with her behind Tessa Porter's back with Mariah Copeland. That should lead to some concerns about Mariah's treatment of Tessa and a heated discussion regarding Daniel's feelings for her. Christine Blair will meet with Lauren Fenmore Baldwin across town for a wedding-related appointment, and it's possible that she may try on the 3 bridal gown options that Lauren promised to provide her. Sadly, Christine and Danny Romalotti will find it difficult to plan a wedding ceremony in such a short period of time. Danny and Christine should opt to postpone their wedding until November at some point between now and the week of September 22nd to 26th. This will give Phyllis more time to plan out how to cause havoc on Christine and Danny's special day, as we know she will do so. Michael must exercise caution in his covert plan to report back to Victor because Phyllis will also be closely monitoring him. In the meantime, Claire Newman's relationship with Kyle Abbott will remain strained due to her developing friendship with Holden Novak. Holden and Claire have more than just a cordial relationship, therefore there may be more issues in the horizon. Kyle might have additional cause for concern once Holden brings Claire in closer and sends out a special invitation, particularly if he witnesses a kiss or at least a tender embrace. Holden's interest in Claire and his potential to mislead her daughter will cause Victoria to worry more and more. The upcoming adventure plot involving Sharon and Nick may begin during the week of September 29th to October 3rd. Nick and Sharon have made the decision to travel to Los Angeles this October to see their son, Noah, who is scheduled to meet with a project developer regarding the opening of a new club branch there. Regretfully, things will not proceed as planned. There will be a significant mystery that makes Nick and Sharon anxious about Noah's precarious circumstances. Fans will have a lot to look forward to since this Y&R plotline eventually includes Detective Burrow, Roger Howarth's character, and Sienna Bacall. According to spoilers for The Young and the Restless, there will be some frightening moments over the coming 3 weeks. Keep checking back for updates on all the potentially harmful news. Noah Newman had always been the adventurous spirit of the Newman family, the dreamer who wanted to carve out a name for himself in the arts, in music, in business, a man who refused to live forever under the shadow of Victor Newman's legacy. But as fate would have it, the week of September 15th to 19th would thrust him into the kind of danger that could make or break his future and tear his family apart in ways no one anticipated. While Noah believed that his Los Angeles project, a chic new club branch designed to capture the energy of the city, was simply another opportunity to prove himself outside of Genoa City, what he didn't know was that this venture would collide headfirst with dangerous forces, mysterious new players, and family drama brewing thousands of miles away. Sharon Newman and Nick Newman, still tied by a lifetime of history and mutual love for their children, would soon be plunged into heartbreaking disarray as news reached them that Noah's situation was spiraling out of control, pulling them into a whirlwind of fear, desperation, and tension that could reopen old wounds between them. Sharon, always the heart, the worrier, the mother who wore her emotions on her sleeve, would panic first, her mind spinning with all the possible threats her son could be facing in a strange city. Nick, though trying to maintain his signature stoicism, would struggle too, knowing deep down that he could not protect his son from the dangers he'd walked into. Not when sinister forces seemed determined to drag Noah into something darker than a simple business deal. Meanwhile, in Genoa City, Cain Ashby's arc would veer into complicated moral territory as he attempted a good deed. A move that seemed simple on the surface but carried ripples that could affect not just him, but Billy Abbott, Jill Abbott, and even Victor Newman himself, all while Cain tried to stitch together fractured family ties and pursue his quiet longing for redemption. Victor Newman, as ever, would dominate the canvas in this dangerous chess game of power and deceit. That week, Victor would be performing what could only be described as a high-stakes juggling act, pursuing adversaries with renewed vigor, and Cain's AI program would be the crown jewel he intended to seize. Victor's plan was meticulous: acquire Cain's cutting-edge AI, weaponize it against Billy Abbott, and thereby destabilize Abbott Communications before turning his focus on Jack Abbott and wreaking havoc at Jabbo. But Victor, cunning as ever, knew the landscape had shifted. Cain had already begun asserting his own intentions by employing Michael Baldwin as his fixer. Michael, caught in a precarious dance between loyalty and manipulation, would serve as Victor's eyes and ears, providing updates that kept the patriarch one step ahead of Cain's game. Yet Phyllis Summers, ever the meddler and mistress of suspicion, would threaten to complicate matters by keeping her sharp eyes trained on Michael, certain he was hiding something. Jack Abbott, always more sensitive to storm clouds on the horizon than most, would recognize the chaos brewing in Genoa City and sound the alarm, confiding in Nicky Newman about the looming catastrophe he feared would engulf them all. In desperation, Jack would turn to Victoria Newman for help, but with Victor and Billy both entrenched in their rivalries, Victoria's ability to intervene effectively would be severely limited, setting the stage for more bitter clashes. Cain, for his part, would be walking a dangerous line of his own. While publicly aligning with Billy in a supposed agreement, both men would be lying through their teeth, each planning to double-cross the other when the timing suited them best. Billy's preference wasn't to use Cain's AI to outright destroy Newman Enterprises. Rather, he wanted to wield the threat of it as leverage to terrify Victor into concessions. But Cain, ever the strategist when pushed into corners, would covertly retain control over the program, ensuring that even if it found its way into Newman Enterprises' system, he alone could pull the strings, leaving him with the power to disrupt the company whenever he chose. And yet, beneath all this scheming, Cain would make a surprisingly earnest move. He would approach Billy not just for business, but for something deeply personal. Cain would appeal to Billy's fractured relationship with Jill Abbott, recognizing how devastated she had been by the rift with her son, and pressure Billy to begin repairing the bond. In this moment, Cain's good deed would shine through, a reminder that beneath his ambition and his secrets, he still longed for connection and healing, still cared enough about the Abbotts to try to mend what was broken. But Cain's personal entanglements wouldn't stop there. With Jill on his mind, Cain would also put on the charm in ways that risked pulling Lily Winters closer again, stirring up old feelings neither had fully buried. Lily, torn between her loyalty to Daniel Romalotti Jr. and her unresolved history with Cain, would find herself in increasingly awkward territory, especially when Daniel confided in her behind Tessa Porter's back. This would trigger a volatile clash with Mariah Copeland, who would accuse Daniel of meddling in her relationship with Tessa, sparking questions about whether Daniel's feelings for Lily had truly ever faded. Elsewhere in Genoa City, Christine Blair and Lauren Fenmore Baldwin would carve out a quieter subplot, meeting to discuss bridal gown options in preparation for Christine's wedding to Danny Romalotti. Yet as Christine tried on gowns and discussed arrangements, reality would sink in. Planning such an important ceremony on a short timeline was nearly impossible. This would lead Christine and Danny to postpone their wedding until November, a decision that would have the unintended consequence of giving Phyllis more time to plot her inevitable attempt to ruin their happiness. As Michael tiptoed through his dangerous double life, feeding information to Victor while dodging Phyllis's suspicion, another storm would brew on the romantic frontlines. Claire Newman and Kyle Abbott's strained relationship would only worsen as her bond with Holden Novak deepened. What began as a friendly connection would start to cross into emotionally dangerous territory, with Holden extending special invitations and gestures that pulled Claire closer. Kyle, ever the jealous observer, would grow increasingly alarmed, especially if he witnessed moments of intimacy, a kiss, an embrace, or even the kind of lingering look that spoke volumes. Victoria Newman, meanwhile, would be troubled by Holden's intentions and the possibility that he was manipulating her daughter for his own ends, leaving her torn between wanting to intervene and fearing that doing so would only push Claire further away. And then there was the ticking clock toward Noah Newman's crisis. As September stretched into October, Nick and Sharon would decide to make the trip to Los Angeles to see their son, eager to support his new project and spend time together as a family. Yet what began as a hopeful visit would quickly descend into fear as Noah found himself entangled in a significant mystery, one that would place him in real jeopardy. The project developer he had trusted would turn out to have dangerous ties, and Noah's ambition to establish himself as an independent success would collide with threats he hadn't anticipated. Sharon and Nick, blindsided, would be pulled into the nightmare as their anxieties for Noah grew, dredging up all the old wounds of their turbulent relationship. Sharon's instinctive panic, her tendency to spiral into worst-case scenarios, would clash with Nick's attempts to remain calm and protective, driving wedges between them at a time when unity mattered most. Their fears wouldn't be unfounded. Spoilers promised frightening moments as Noah's situation escalated, eventually drawing in new characters like Detective Burrow, played by Roger Howarth, and Sienna Bacall, whose presence would add layers of intrigue and danger to the unfolding plot. As the pieces fell into place, it would become clear that Noah's club project wasn't just a business venture. It was the bait in a larger scheme, one that could entangle the Newman family in ways none of them had seen coming. Sharon and Nick's disarray, Kane's surprising attempt at goodwill, Victor's relentless manipulations, and the intertwining of Abbott drama would all feed into a narrative storm barreling toward Genoa City and Los Angeles alike. Fans of The Young and the Restless could expect heart-pounding twists, bitter confrontations, and shocking alliances as danger loomed for Noah, while his parents grappled with the agony of watching history repeat itself. Another Newman child endangered by the choices, rivalries, and secrets of the adults who loved them but could not shield them from the darkness waiting in the wings. Noah Newman had always thought of Los Angeles as a place of rebirth, a city where his name didn't need to be tied to Victor's empire, Sharon's heartbreaks, or Nick's legacy. It was supposed to be his chance to define himself on his own terms, to let his vision of a thriving new club become his identity rather than his family name. But by mid-September, his optimism was beginning to unravel in ways he could never have anticipated. The project developer he had partnered with had been charming at first, eager to support Noah's artistic vision, but subtle cracks began to appear. A delayed payment here, a strange request for Noah to sign additional paperwork there, late-night calls about new investors with shadowy backgrounds. It was only when Noah discovered that some of the funding sources tied back to dangerous entities that the full weight of his predicament began to sink in. Noah's easygoing demeanor, the same trait that often endeared him to women and friends alike, left him vulnerable to being manipulated by people far more ruthless than he could imagine. By the time Sharon and Nick arrived in Los Angeles, Noah's bright future was already tangled in a web that smelled of extortion, betrayal, and potential violence. Sharon, who had always prided herself on her intuition, felt the shift the moment she saw Noah. His smile didn't reach his eyes. His reassurances about everything being fine came too quickly, too polished, as if rehearsed. She didn't need proof to know that her son was in trouble. Her heart told her long before the evidence surfaced. Nick, ever the pragmatic one, tried to ground Sharon, but even he couldn't ignore the obvious tension coiled around Noah like an invisible noose. When Sharon pushed Noah for details, his frustration boiled over, his voice cracking as he admitted that things weren't as simple as they seemed. He wasn't just building a club, he was tangled in agreements that put him at risk, and walking away wasn't as easy as packing his bags and returning home. Nick's protective instincts surged immediately, his temper flaring as he demanded names, companies, and full disclosure, but Noah, proud and determined, resisted. The argument escalated, leaving Sharon in tears as she begged both father and son to calm down before they said things that could never be taken back. The fractures in the Newman family were widening, and danger was only tightening its grip. Meanwhile, back in Genoa City, Victor was sharpening his strategies with a precision that left even Michael Baldwin unnerved. Victor's obsession with Kane's AI program had reached fever pitch, and Michael, while feeding him intel, was privately beginning to question whether he had aligned himself with the right man. Victor didn't merely want the program to control Abbott Communications, he wanted to own it, to use it as leverage against Billy and Jack, and possibly even Kane himself. What Victor underestimated, however, was Kane's quiet cunning. Though outwardly playing the role of a man willing to collaborate, Kane was secretly embedding control codes and backdoor mechanisms into the AI system, ensuring that if Victor ever tried to use it against him, Kane could flip the switch and render Victor powerless. For Kane, this wasn't just about survival, it was about proving that he was no longer the pawn people assumed he was. Yet in the middle of these power plays, Kane's softer side emerged when he approached Billy with the plea to repair his relationship with Jill. It wasn't a business move, wasn't a manipulation, at least, not entirely. Kane had seen the cracks in Jill's facade, the way her eyes filled with unshed tears whenever her son's name was mentioned, and he knew she deserved healing before the years slipped away forever. For Kane, doing this wasn't just about earning points with Jill, it was about redeeming a piece of himself in the process. Phyllis, of course, wasn't buying any of it. Watching Michael dart between Victor, Kane, and Billy only deepened her suspicion that something shady was unfolding behind the scenes. Her instinct told her that Michael was neck-deep in secrets, and her knack for exposing truths would drive her closer to blowing his cover. What Phyllis didn't realize yet was that her prying could inadvertently place her in Victor's crosshairs, and once Victor decided someone was a liability, the consequences were never light. As Christine and Danny postponed their wedding until November, buying Phyllis more time to sabotage their happiness, her attention would soon be divided between that personal vendetta and the larger scheme swirling around Newman and Abbott territory. The Claire-Kyle-Holden triangle also took a darker turn. Holden, no longer content with keeping things platonic, began making bolder moves. Invitations turned into private moments, and private moments turned into subtle touches that carried emotional weight. Claire, vulnerable and confused, found herself torn between Kyle's jealousy and Holden's magnetic charm. Kyle's temper boiled over when he confronted Claire about Holden, accusing her of betraying their bond, but Claire shot back that Kyle had broken her trust first with his own past betrayals. Victoria, already worried, began to investigate Holden's background more thoroughly, fearing that he was not only leading her daughter astray but possibly aligning with forces Victor hadn't yet accounted for. If Holden had his own agenda, Claire's heart might be the weapon he used to execute it. As all of this tension simmered in Genoa City, Sharon and Nick's time in Los Angeles spiraled into chaos. Detective Burrow entered the picture, an enigmatic figure whose rough-around-the-edges demeanor immediately clashed with Nick's alpha male attitude. Burrow's investigation into organized crime in the area intersected with Noah's business dealings, confirming Sharon's worst fears. Noah's project developer was connected to money laundering and criminal enterprises, and Noah's club was about to become a front for illegal activity if he didn't cut ties fast. But cutting ties wasn't an option. Noah had already signed contracts and accepted funding, leaving him liable if he walked away. Worse, there were implications of threats to his safety should he attempt to back out. Sharon's panic reached a breaking point as she clung to Nick, sobbing that they couldn't lose another child, while Nick's protective instincts kicked into overdrive, leading to clashes with Burrow over how best to protect Noah. Sienna Bacall, meanwhile, emerged as a mysterious player in Los Angeles, a woman with ties to the very syndicate threatening Noah. While her initial interactions with Noah were veiled in charm, her true intentions remained shadowed. Was she an ally who could help Noah escape his predicament, or a wolf in sheep's clothing, meant to draw him deeper into the trap? Sharon distrusted her immediately, while Nick reluctantly acknowledged that Sienna might be Noah's only chance to negotiate his way out of the mess. This moral dilemma only deepened the rift between Nick and Sharon. Nick, pragmatic and willing to use any resource available, versus Sharon, emotional and distrustful of letting anyone else near her son. The longer Noah remained entangled, the more desperate the Newmans became, leading to heated late-night arguments between Nick and Sharon that reopened old scars about their history. Sharon accused Nick of failing to protect their children before, dragging Faith's trauma and Cass's death back into the light. Nick, furious, snapped back that Sharon's impulsive decisions had always worsened situations. The love between them was still palpable, but so was the pain, and as they faced losing Noah, it felt like the ground beneath them was cracking wide open. Back in Genoa City, Victor's machinations began spilling over into other lives. Jack, desperate to stop Victor before he triggered catastrophe, doubled down on his warnings to Nikki. Nikki, torn between her loyalty to Victor and her awareness of his destructive patterns, found herself caught in an impossible position. Meanwhile, Kane's balancing act between deception and goodwill threatened to collapse when Billy realized that Kane's AI had backdoor controls he hadn't disclosed. A confrontation between them loomed, one that could either forge an uneasy alliance or explode into another all-out war. By the time September gave way to October, the narrative threads were racing toward explosive intersections. Noah's danger in Los Angeles wasn't just his battle. It was a storyline pulling Sharon and Nick into emotional ruin, threatening to drag Sienna and Detective Burrow into their orbit. Kane's good deed of trying to repair Jill and Billy's bond might win him points, but his secretive manipulation of the AI program was a ticking time bomb waiting for Victor to discover. Claire's confusion between Kyle and Holden was spiraling into something that could shatter her relationship with her mother, while Phyllis's unrelenting suspicion put her in the middle of Michael and Victor's dangerous alliance. Every character was balancing precariously on a knife's edge, and the closer they moved toward resolution, the more likely catastrophe seemed. For fans, the promise of frightening moments, shocking betrayals, and long-awaited confrontations meant that the next few weeks of The Young and the Restless would be must-see television, with every twist leaving viewers desperate for the next. As Noah's world continued to close in, Sharon and Nick realized that every step forward seemed to drag them deeper into quicksand. Burrow's investigation intensified, and with each new revelation, it became clearer that Noah had been marked by men far more dangerous than he imagined. Sharon grew increasingly frantic, insisting they pull Noah out immediately and return to Genoa City, but Nick knew walking away wasn't that simple, not when contracts, debts, and dangerous figures were still hovering around his son. Back home, Kane's so-called good deed began to ripple through the Abbott family, with Jill softening at Billy's attempts to reconnect. Yet Kane's motives weren't as pure as he wanted to believe, because every reconciliation he engineered still tied back to the AI program and his larger game with Victor. Jack, watching from the sidelines, sensed that both Newman and Abbott power struggles were about to converge in ways that could shake the city. With Noah dangling on the edge of disaster in Los Angeles and Kane's schemes threatening to ignite Genoa City, the storm clouds were gathering fast, ensuring that the coming weeks would deliver heartbreak, betrayal, and a battle for survival that no family could escape.